Welcome, fertility sisters, to the True Fertility Podcast. I'm your host, Leah Nicole Trujillo, a wife, mom, and therapist turned fertility coach after a challenging 7-year journey to conceive. Join me for stories from those who've walked this path, tips for your fertility and IVF journey, and some fertility-related girl talk. So let's sprinkle some of that baby dust because it's time for True Fertility. Infertility is hard, but what can make it extra hard? Being a stepmom. With little information out there on how to navigate either situation, I wanted to ask someone who not only has experienced both, but coaches other stepmoms on how to navigate the complexities of a blended family with ease. And that woman is Charlotte Goff. Charlotte is a certified step family coach and healer who has experienced IVF herself and has a little boy via her first IVF experience. In this episode, we explore the emotional toll of being a stepmother and going through IVF. We'll also give tips on how to give yourself the time and space you need in this scenario. We will also discuss about how having a baby or trying for a baby affects your relationship and what to do about it. Regardless of your stepmom status, you don't want to miss this episode. Now, before we get started with today's episode, I wanted to offer my listeners an opportunity to snag my free class, Triple Your IVF Success with Less Stress. Inside this free masterclass, you'll receive 2 simple tools that you can start on today that have been proven to triple your success rates when trying to conceive. These tools not only help you boost your fertility, but also help you feel better now. So if you're looking to get your baby in your arms faster, reduce the number of IVF rounds, and ultimately save money, time, and energy, this is the tool for you. Go to www.leahnicolecoaching.com, that's LEANICOLE, coaching.com to grab this free class while it's available. Welcome to another edition of the True Fertility Podcast. I am here today with Charlotte Goff. And thank you so much for being here, Charlotte.
Thank you. I'm excited, so thank you.
Yes, definitely. I was so excited when Charlotte agreed to come on the show. I actually had taken a little bit of time to look at her social media, and I love that Charlotte is pretty much a no-holds-barred coach and shares all of the kind of like behind the scenes thoughts about being a stepmom and all that comes with it. And I love your honesty because I think so many women think those things and feel those things, but are not at the place where they feel comfortable sharing that. So I just really respect that about Charlotte. And again, I thought she'd be the perfect person to talk about this situation in which you are going through IVF, but you're also a stepmother, because that adds another layer to it. And I think it's not something that's really explored as much as it could be, because there's so many blended families out there.
Yeah, definitely. And it's really widespread. Obviously, I speak to so many stepmoms because I know so many stepmoms, and so many struggle with infertility and IVF, I guess, because as well, when you meet a man with children, it's most of the time a little bit later in life.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, before we get into that, I kind of wanted to just start it off a little bit on the lighthearted side, a little bit of fun in here, and get to know you by asking you some rapid fire questions. Do you think so? Here we go. Glitter makeup. Do we think that is hot or not? Would you wear that glitter makeup?
Yeah, definitely. Like in my partying days, I used to love a bit of glitter. Haven't at festivals and things like that. I haven't done it for a long time, maybe around Christmas.
Yes, it's time for that glitter pin to come out again, right?
Yeah.
All right, if you could only choose one food to eat, which one would you go with? Pizza or tacos?
Oh, pizza.
Pizza, if you had to choose one for the rest of your life. Yeah, that is a really hard one because I do love
because you can have different flavored pizzas.
That's true. You could, I mean, even some sweet ones I'm seeing now, like
Yeah, I
with
was thinking
butternut
like
squash and all
Nutella
sorts.
pizza. I've seen that somewhere.
Yeah, that I know it's amazing, right? All the variety you can have with that pizza. Okay, last question here. What is the most like adventurous or insane thing that you've done in your life? What do you think that would be?
Oh goodness. Like blocked out some of it from like my early 20s.
Haven't we all?
Yeah, when I was like 18, me and my friend were like, what are we going to do for this summer? And we just booked a ticket and then went to a party island and worked there the summer. And yeah, that was probably it really. And I think we were really out of our depths because actually neither of us were massive drinkers anyway. Like we couldn't really keep up with it. And we were much younger than everybody else there. So yeah, looking back, I've got a 20-year-old stepdaughter, and if she had got 18, I would have been so worried. I can't believe my parents actually let me go, actually. Yeah, but that was probably one of the most
Wow.
adventurous. I probably wouldn't do that now. Like I would probably be too scared just to go to another country and just see where I was going to kind of end up. Yeah.
Yeah, we've all done some pretty wild things, I think, but that
Mhm.
is really funny. And that's funny you say I actually also I didn't go for a party though. I did go by myself to a foreign country when I was like 22, like completely by myself. I didn't even speak the language and I
Oh,
was there for
wow.
a whole month.
Yeah.
Um yeah, but yours sounds a little more interesting with we're going for just the sole purpose of partying. So
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
that. Okay, well, thank you for going through that rapid fire round with me. I loved hearing your answers there. And first off, can you share a little bit more about your background and how you came to do what you're doing now?
Yeah, of course, of course. So I'm 37 now, and when I was 26, I got into yoga, and I used to suffer with a lot of anxiety. Was not in sort of best relationships, so my self worth wasn't the best. And I remember like an ex boyfriend, flatmate, roommate who was a girl was like, "I'm going to take you to a yoga class," and I still remember it now. Like I had such a headache because I was so stressed. And even after the first yoga class, it didn't go, but I just kept at it. And yeah, I just obviously like yoga transformed your life. I did my first yoga teacher training, which was Kundalini yoga actually. And then I did another one the next year. I went to Goa for a month. I did an intensive of Ashtanga Vinyasa. And yeah, that's how I started in the coaching world, was actually through teaching yoga. And then I started my name was like the yoga life coach. So I did like general life coaching, and then went into relationship coaching. And then 4 years ago, when I became a stepmom, I obviously really struggled. As a stepmom, I went to a therapist who like told me you knew what you were getting into, just said all these things that I would never say to anyone. And that's when I realized that absolutely no one knew how to help stepmoms. And things have really improved in the past couple of years, but back then there was literally no support. Stepmom coaching wasn't even a thing. And it was
Hmm.
actually a psychic who told me, because we'd been trying for a baby for a long time. And I went to a psychic who I guess is a little bit woo-woo, but she like communicates with like the souls of babies. It gave me like hope at that time, comfort. And she actually
Yeah.
said to me, "Oh, you're going to be a stepmom coach." And at the time I was like, well, I'm really struggling in myself as a stepmom, so I can't see that happening. And what the hell is a stepmom coach anyway? It just wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
And definitely not in the UK. And then as time went on, because I was into self-development, I'd had therapy and coaching myself and was always open to learning something. And, my situation was starting to prove. And I was like, actually, I can actually see how I could help others. And then the support that I saw out there was very negative, like very much the stepmoms who were like in victimhood, blaming everybody else, bad mouthing the ex, saying not very nice things about their stepchildren. And that's not how I am. I'm very much like, we take responsibility for ourselves, for our own healing. Even if we're in a difficult situation, we still have power over the thoughts and the actions we take and setting boundaries, etc., as we need to, but we have to take responsibility for ourselves. And yeah, then I tried to find a coaching certification in the UK, but there wasn't one. And I actually took one online, but it was like one-to-one online with a place called the Step Family Foundation, which are based in the US. And yeah, that was like 4 years ago. And I've been going ever since. So yeah, that's how I've got here really. And I love it. And I feel that it's it's what I needed 4 years ago. I wish I'd found someone like me that
Wow, what better life experiences to set you up for being in this great position to help other women. So, how long have you been a stepmom and how many stepchildren do you have?
yeah. So I've been a stepmom for is it 6 years? I get like confused of all years, about 6.5 years. And my husband has 4 children and there's 2 different exes, which is why my situation is quite unique. So
Yeah.
2 of my stepchildren I'm really close to. The other 2 with a different birth mum has been a really different experience. So yeah, I've kind of seen it from both sides, how it feels to have an ex who likes you and how it feels to have an ex who really doesn't like you and has kind of made that clear. So it does impact the relationship with your stepchildren because I do understand it's not easy having someone come into your children's life who you think they may like. Like it's difficult. I always put myself in other people's positions and your child is your world. And even though of course you don't own the child, you still are very protective. And again, you don't know that person coming into the situation. So it's difficult. It's difficult for everybody all around. Something like 2 and 3 step families don't work out. There's like a really high
Wow.
divorce rate among, I think it's like about 50% for first families, but something, 75% for the remarried families of children. So it is difficult.
Yeah, it sounds like you have again like such great experience like with both types of situations and relationships. And yeah, I mean that's a huge statistic to try to overcome. And part of that obviously is the role and relationship that you have as a stepmom and how that goes hand in hand with your relationship as a partner, right, to your husband and, the relationships between you and the kids too. So that's very complex. Um,
Yeah, it is. I can't believe I'm sometimes still sat here because like probably about 1,000 times I've wanted
yeah,
to leave and just enough is enough. Like, especially not for obviously the past couple of years, but in the first 2 years, especially when dealing with infertility, that
that
a real
actually
painful sting when my
definitely.
husband had like 4 other children and then you're struggling to even have one. And then, every other weekend or whenever they come over, it's just that reminder. And, I always used to get like my period the weekend, my stepchildren come as well. So it was like when we were
Oh
trying
my
before the
gosh.
IVF, that was difficult as well because it was like you were upset, but you couldn't be upset and you wanted to be angry and resentful, etc. as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I kind of also just aside from even the complexity of being a stepmom and struggling to conceive, just aside from just pulling those apart, even if I kind of wanted to draw some parallels there because stepmoms, I saw one of your posts and I was like, oh my gosh, this also applies to infertility. You said stepmoms must grieve the life that they dreamed of as a little girl, right? And that's the same also for women struggling to conceive. You have this idealized version of how your life is supposed to go. We kind of have this idea like you get married, you decide then to have kids, and it happens, right? You don't have this huge gap or all of these different roadblocks and avenues to get there. So, yeah, it is a disconnect from what we had envisioned. And so again, just kind of thinking about that on one hand, just being in a stepmom role and then layering on the infertility on top of that,
Mhm.
that is like double dissonance, right, from what we wanted to what life has given us at this moment. And so trying to go through that, I think again takes a lot of extra navigation and extra self-care, right?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Yeah, because if you think about it, like when we were little and our teens or whenever it may be, like you think, right, this is the type of man I'm going to meet and this is the house I'm going to have and the white wedding and the children, if that's what you want. And when you know, meet a man with children, it's not, the honest truth, it's not in anybody's life plan. But it's obviously not, like I said in that post, it's not in the children's life plan. It's not in the ex's life plan. Like, everybody's grieving. And this is why it's so difficult, because you've all come together with this grief and this pain and this anger that not everybody has potentially processed. So yeah, it's really difficult in that sense. And it's not to say one grief is harder than the other, but I struggled with infertility. I've got polycystic ovarian syndrome. So I'm actually, everything's okay now. I think it was really weird actually. I was in a relationship, whenever it must have been late 20s, and my period stopped for like 2 years, and they stopped the month before I met this guy. And then as soon as I broke up with him, they come back again. And like the doctors, like, obviously I went because I knew I'd known I had PCOS since I was 15, but they used to give me like all these drugs to try and get my periods going, and just nothing was working. And I think that was like God, the universe just saying, don't have a baby with this guy, kind of looking back. But yeah, I struggled with infertility then as well. And, I really, I did want a baby with that guy at the time, and all my friends around me were having babies. Actually, my 4 closest friends, their first children were born within the same week of each other, whilst I was like not getting my periods. No drugs were working to even get my periods going again. Like it was really difficult. But the pain I felt with infertility as a stepmom was even worse, because with my friends, I could almost hide away from the fact they'd had children, which I did. I did remove myself from that sort of situation just for a little while, because I found it sort of difficult for a couple of months. But with my husband's kids, I can't do that. You can't just hide away. It's there, and you have to try and get through the difficult feeling.
Yeah, wow. Often, I guess, as women trying to conceive, as you mentioned, we often get like pangs of jealousy, right? For women who are pregnant naturally or maybe easily. How does that play into you being in a marriage with your husband, and knowing that your ex, or assuming, right, that the ex was able to conceive without support?
Yeah, totally. I don't know for the oldest 2. I think they took a little bit longer, but the youngest 2, I know, one was like instantly and one was a mistake. So no child is ever a mistake. Every child is a blessing, but it was, they were on their way out of their relationship. They'd actually split up, got back together. She said she was on the pill, she wasn't, and then they had another baby. So I was so angry. I was just like, I just thought, like, why is this happening to me? And it made me really, resentful and angry and jealous. And it's not nice to say, but at some point I like hated the kids just for like them being there when wasn't their fault. But I just found it like so difficult. It was the most challenging thing. And I can talk about it now. I think that's because I've forgiven myself. And obviously I don't feel anything like that. And even this time around, and I can talk about my IVF experience and etc. as well. Like, I haven't felt that anger and that pain and that jealousy for more than 5 seconds. So I guess that shows how you can heal. For me, it is possible. But so many years ago, I was just really angry about it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can imagine. I mean, again, like, sometimes I share with clients that, and even in my experience too, like, if something is really triggering for you, then maybe we need to put a boundary until you feel up for that, like while we work on healing. But as you mentioned before, there's not really an escape for you as a stepmom. If you're still feeling very vulnerable or triggered by, seeing kids and your stepkids. So how did you deal with that? How did you like kind of start off with that?
Yeah, of course. So I probably did put boundaries in. I probably did sit in my room and just take that time and cry for an hour or whatever I did at the time, and just let my husband do what he had to do. Or yeah, that's the thing. I may went out for the day or the weekend or something like that. So I did put those boundaries in. And then I remembered there was like this turning point about 3 months before I went for the IVF, where I suddenly started feeling at peace with everything. And that's when I knew like it was the right time for me to go. But through the IVF, because before that I had too much jealousy and anger and resentment. Like I just knew it probably wasn't going to have a positive outcome, where I just still had all those emotions going on. So yeah, there was definitely that turning point. But I did definitely put boundaries on and remove myself from the situation.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and good on you for doing that, for taking care of yourself and honoring what you needed, because I think a lot of women often feel guilty for doing something like that. They feel like they're letting down, stepchildren, or maybe their husband might be putting some more pressure on them to hang out as a family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess where I've been in the self-development world, and it's like, I'm sure I don't ever get off the self-development train anymore. And that's
Yeah.
why I don't really have many wobbles. I feel quite in control of myself and feel able to look after myself. We talk about like the recent IVF that didn't work out. I've got quite a large Facebook group, like thousands and thousands of stepmothers, so many posts a day. And I just basically turned off like the post, said I wouldn't be in there, and just took myself away from it. I didn't say what was going on until actually this week. And I
Mhm.
just did take that time out, and I didn't even say anything. I just said, just letting you know, and turning off like posts in here. You won't be able to post. I'm taking a break from social media, and just leave it at that. And I've been such a people pleaser in the past. So I've
Mhm.
had to learn that sometimes I can say no, and I don't even need to give an explanation. Like I don't need to over explain, that it's okay just to say I'm
Yeah.
taking a step back. Yeah.
Well, I love that. Yeah, you don't have to give an explanation. I think that's absolutely true. As a people pleaser myself, learning that you don't have to give an explanation is totally okay. So you mentioned again kind of aspects of your IVF journey, but do you
Mhm.
mind going a little more bit more in depth on kind of how that played out for you? And
Yeah, of course.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So I was really anti IVF, like in the beginning. Like I'm a very like holistic spiritual person. Like I don't really even take paracetamol. So it kind of went against everything that I believed. And I just totally changed my mind of it. And then, after however long of trying naturally with my husband, I remember seeing, and I went to visit a few IVF clinics. I just got a bad feeling from both of them. I knew more about it than they did. I was like asking them questions because I'd like really researched everything, and they just didn't seem that, I guess, like positive or certain in their thing. I
Mhm.
remember one doctor just being like, kind of looking at my age and seeing that I was healthy and being like, yeah, you won't have any problem at all. Not even looking away from his computer. And I was thinking like, yeah, that's positive, but that's just maybe a bit blasé about things as
Mhm.
well. Like actually, so yeah, I just didn't get a good feeling there. And then I saw a advert for like natural mild IVF on Instagram, and I hadn't heard of that at that point. So I thought, oh, like I'm going to go along. And it was a little bit further away from us, but as soon as I went, I was like, oh, this is the right clinic. And I just got
Mhm.
a really good feeling. And from start to finish, like I had the nicest experience. Like I've been working a lot on my mindset before. Like I had done a lot of work on my mindset and eating the right food and the journaling and all these kind of things. And
Yeah.
I did a lot of sort of manifestation work really as well,
Yeah.
looking back. And yeah, I was really positive about it. I just kind of had a feeling that it was gonna work for me. And yeah, I just really I know it sounds so weird because so many have a negative experience, and I've had that negative experience as well. But I had a really positive experience because I was so grateful to go through it as well. Like we just had the lockdown. It was in 2020, and they were starting to open up the IVF clinic, and that was one of the first things that opened. So I was grateful for the IVF that it even existed. I was like, wow, this
Yeah.
is such a wonderful science. I was like grateful that the clinics had opened up because they'd been shut. I was grateful. I was just so grateful. Every little injection I did, I was like, thank you, thank you, thank you. I was just so grateful. And then, yeah, I had a really positive experience. I didn't even really feel that ill or anything. So I had my little boy, Charles, and yeah, he's perfect, and he's 2.5. And from that IVF cycle, we had another embryo. And it's really weird. Like, even when I was pregnant with Charles, or Charles had just been born, all I could think about was this embryo sometimes. It's a bit of a weird feeling knowing that you've got this little baby basically frozen. And we knew we definitely wanted another child. And so I knew I just was going to put this embryo in. But looking back, in all honesty, I wasn't as prepared as the first time mentally. I was a bit like, oh, it worked the first time, I'm sure it'll work the second time thing. And the IVF clinic as well had changed hands since we went last. They'd been bought out by I guess a bigger company. And the whole service from start to finish was just stressful. You could never get hold of them. You know, the day before my IVF transfer, I'm calling them, what's my time that I'm supposed to be in? And the receptionist told me rather than the doctor. It was stressful from start to finish. And yeah, and as soon as they put the little embryo in, I just had a feeling that something wasn't quite right, that it wasn't meant to be this time. And obviously I was devastated when we got the negative results, but there was also something inside of me that was like, this wasn't my time. I'm going to have another baby, but I needed these lessons. And I have a lot of stepmoms that I work with that obviously go through infertility, IVF, so many of my clients have been through that. And I've never been able to resonate with pain or the sad side of IVF because I had such positive experience. I almost felt smug sometimes, and I didn't want to be. And I know it sounds bizarre, but I'm almost grateful that I've been able to experience this pain because, number one, I'm so much more grateful for Charles. I feel a deeper connection to him over the past couple of weeks, and I'm so every moment I'm more present with him, and I'm so making the most of every moment with him. And also as well, for my client, I understand them better and I feel I have more empathy. I'm also practicing gratitude all the time, which I wasn't doing. I'm looking after myself so much more. I'm getting out to nature. I changed my work schedule. I'm not taking clients the weekends. I've blocked out a couple of evenings and things like that. So it's changed me. I put some boundaries in with my Facebook group as well. So yeah, I'm looking at the positives because that's what's helping me. But it's not to say that it wasn't painful. I didn't get out of bed for 2 days. I was really devastated, of course, because yeah. So that's where I am. So I really experienced the highs and the lows of IVF. Yeah.
Well, first off, I'm so sorry that your second transfer didn't take. That's still, again, it's definitely a loss. And I think sometimes other people who are not in this space or world maybe don't see it as such, but it really is, especially you put so much time and energy and investment emotionally, financially, physically, and then for it to not work out, it's like a wave that just hits you, right? And I can totally understand.
You see that as your baby. I always saw that as my baby. I was like, those are my 2 babies. And so it's
exactly. It is. I mean, it really is. It was a life that you created. And, unfortunately, it's not here right now. And again, I'm so sorry for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I mean, I know, obviously, as we just shared, it's very taxing. It can be very taxing emotionally.
Yeah.
So how did you deal with that? Again, in that stepmother role, post transfer, and then also just leading up to the transfer, because again, it's still, you want to give that time and space for you to get prepared mentally and physically, right? So how do you deal with navigating resources, time for yourself, and then also the child?
Yeah, so we did the same thing that we did with the first round of IVF. So once the embryo was in for the first week or maybe a little bit before, we just said that I was having an operation. We didn't obviously say what, and that the custody agreement would have to change, which didn't go down too well. I've got to say, one of the exes was obviously not happy about it, but that's what we needed to do. I wouldn't have been able to get through it. My little boy went to my mum's for the first week as well, because obviously I can't pick him up and he's energetic and up so early. So yeah, it was difficult. You have to set those boundaries as a stepmom. You do feel that pang of guilt, but I kept thinking of the bigger picture. Longer term, I'm not resentful, and longer term, I would want it that we're all one big happy family rather than me being in a bad place because it didn't work out, and then I'm blaming them because I'm having to still keep to the usual schedule. So I know that from my side, I did everything I can, and that there's no need for me to blame anybody else, because we took all the steps we needed so that I did have that time and space, and put those boundaries in. So yeah, and like I say, when I first got the negative test, I was probably angry for only a couple of hours, because I worked through so many emotions for 2 years. So I know how to reframe it and feel it, etc. as well. And something I did this time, like I said, I'm trained in Kundalini yoga. It's like the first type of yoga I did, and it's a real healing. It's like therapy in a session. Like, I think it's more therapeutic than therapy. And that's actually what I've been doing almost every day since we got the negative result. And yeah, that's what's been helping me and keeping my mood high. So that's how I've been getting through it. We're going to try naturally again for a little bit, and then look into the IVF next year, because at the moment I can't think of going through the injections, etc. again. But I know that me spiraling for too long is not going to help me to actually, if I emotionally go through the IVF again. I need to have a strong head on my shoulders.
Yeah. Well, first off, I totally agree with you on the power of yoga. That is actually something that I recommend to my clients as well, like fertility yoga, all of that. And yeah, it's a really great place to like decompress and just really focus in on you and your body and
Yeah.
listening to your body, right? And doing and giving it what it needs at that time. And then, yeah, I mean, I guess I love that again, you're giving yourself that time and space to kind of move forward with IVF when, if necessary, and really when you're at a good place instead of just, okay, immediately let's just, go to the next round. I love that. But when you are preparing, if you do that in the future, do you plan on sharing anything about the IVF process, or that you're going to be doing IVF with anyone in the
No,
future?
unless they can look on my social media. They
Yeah.
could. It's all there for me to, and I
Yeah.
know one of them definitely looks at it, so they could see it all there. But I don't think that's a conversation that we need to have. I think it's
Yeah.
such. Also, so I want to put them in an awkward position. Like, for them, it's like maybe uncomfortable that their ex is trying to have another baby, and I just think it's a bit awkward for everybody. I don't have that kind of relationship with them, but I'm sure some stepmoms do, where the
Yeah.
ex would be supportive of IVF. I've definitely seen that on social media, where they're celebrating that the stepmom's
Mhm.
pregnant and things like that. And I'm sure if I was pregnant, that's a different story. But I don't think that the IVF is something I feel comfortable sharing. I think it just kind of as well leaves it too open that we don't know whether we're definitely going to go through it again, and you don't know the outcome. And sometimes actually telling too many people, I think, puts a pressure on you as well.
Yeah. Mhm. I agree with that totally. Yeah, and then aside from even sharing again with the mother, the ex, right? How do you handle or deal with what if one of your stepchildren
Mm.
is expressing that they don't want to have another sibling, or that,
Yeah.
how do you navagate that? They want to remain with
And
you
only
without having
child born, yeah, of
another
course,
sibling in
like,
the
yeah, of
mix.
course, of course. Okay, I think it would depend on their ages, but I think it's about getting to the root cause of why they're worried. Is it because they think they're not going to get enough time? Is it they think they're going to be pushed aside? Is it they think they're not going to be loved anymore? Is it they think they're not going to be favoured, or it's not going to be fair? So I think it's about getting to the root cause and then trying to address those and obviously speak to it. But sometimes there's not a lot you can do. The child is sometimes going to react to a situation in a way that how they're feeling at the time. And sometimes I've seen this, you can kind of do all you can do and say all you can say, but sometimes they are just still holding a lot of trauma and grief from the divorce. Sometimes you've got the ex in their ear potentially saying that, oh, if your stepmom and dad have a baby, you're not going to be loved. So it's very multifaceted. So that's why it's like maybe get into the root cause of the child. But if I was working with a client, I'd be looking at the bigger picture. What's the relationship with the ex like? How is the partner and the ex's relationship? Also, how is the biological father and stepchild's relationship? Is that something that needs to be worked on? Are they actually feeling they don't get enough of their dad at the moment? Is it that the stepmom and the stepchild don't have a bond and that needs to be deepened, and that needs more trust? Because stepfamilies take 5 to 7 years to blend.
Wow.
So yeah, so it's a long time, and I've definitely seen that in my personal experience as well. And sometimes, I'm trying to think as well, if I was that child, you're the first 2 to 3 years, like, you're still not settled. And if your parents have already broken up, like, sometimes you have a fear that that's all gonna happen again as well, and maybe don't want more change, etc. as well. So yeah, you can do all you can do to try and reassure the child and make sure emotionally and physically you're showing that. But sometimes even that doesn't help. And sometimes until that baby comes along, they might not even realize that they're going to love it. Sometimes it's like the idea of it is like terrible. And then actually when the baby comes along, like, the stepchild like loves having a
Yeah.
sibling. And I think it's just about trying to normalize it. What we really did was not change the schedule too much within reason with having a baby, trying to just keep everything the same as much as possible, and making sure that the kid had time, with their
Yeah.
dad, or things were the same as possible. So sometimes you can't reassure them until the baby's actually there, because they have this idea of how it might go in their head.
Yeah, yeah, that makes total sense.
Mm.
So, what I hear you saying on that is really just look at the underlying fear for what
Mm.
their opposition is to the idea of having another child and work from there. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Oh, yeah.
and you mentioned, obviously, we haven't talked very much about this before, but
Mm.
you mentioned, obviously, putting up these boundaries, having these conversations. How do you go about that as far as with your husband? Does he need to really be on the same page as you on boundaries and these discussions with stepchildren, or how you go about talking with the ex about these situations?
Yeah. So do you mean like during the IVF process, as in having that the kids wouldn't come to us for a week type thing?
Exactly. Like adjusting
Yeah.
the schedules, and also just kind of, again, having these conversations about, hey, instead of your stepmom wants a kid, we want to have a new a child, and tell me kind of more like
Yeah, of
what might
course.
be on your mind or what's worrying you about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So in a step family, like, the couple's relationship is the bedrock, the foundation. And when that is strong, then everything else tends to fall into place, because obviously the kids can't come between you, the air can't between you. But when you first become part of a blended family, most couples are not in that place. You have to work to get to a place where you're on the same page, and your partner has your back, etc. as well. So it's about, I guess, getting to that place first. But yeah, my husband has always, for the majority, definitely the past couple of years, obviously maybe not in the beginning, but had my back and been on the same page, and been a team.
Hmm.
And if one of the kids would be like, can we have some sweets? My husband used to say, "I'll go to Charlotte, she's the boss." So he would elevate like my position and my authority quite early on, so that they
Hmm.
couldn't come between us. So when you're talking about something like a child, which is even more important, yeah, being a team, it would be very much like but the dad would very much need to reassure his children that, okay, things may change a little bit, because of course anything changes when a new baby comes along. And it's important to remember, even like with a full sibling, there's going to be jealousy and rivalry. So it's natural when any baby comes along. It just can be heightened when a stepchild, I'm saying half sibling, we don't say that, but we just say full
Hmm.
siblings, but the technically a biological
Hmm.
half sibling comes along. So it's really important that the dad is still having that one-on-one time with the kids or the children, and making sure by his actions that they're still loved and they're still a priority. And my husband sometimes says it is difficult, like he sometimes feels like he's in the middle and trying to give enough time and attention to everyone. But we've definitely figured it out. Having a baby now, I used to get like jealous and insecure in the beginning, but now I'm just like, it's okay. Like, there's more than enough love to go around. Yes, we're not all going to have each other's attention 100% of the time. It is, you always give a bit of time to this person, a bit of time to that person, and that's how it is. But as if you can compromise, and if you can know that you're not always going to get your own way, and you're not going to get your partner to yourself 100% of the time, and you're not going to be a first family. It's not going to be a mum and a dad and a child or two children. It's a completely different setup. You know, for example, my oldest stepson, because he's the one that spends the most time here, he's here this weekend. My husband will take him to football. And those thoughts do go through my head, like, oh, if it was just me and my husband and our child, like, we'd get our Saturday and we could go out. You know, there's this dinosaur restaurant I know my little boy would love. And I was like, oh, we could have gone to the dinosaur restaurant. So those thoughts do go through your head, but you have to just think, I'm going to just think of everything I can do. Okay, I can't do that, but actually I can still take my little boy and we can still have a lovely time if I ever really wanted to go. So yeah, kind of went off on a tangent there. But, you know, if you're going to have a child with someone, he's got children as well. You have to think about these things, that it's not going to be that same experience for someone without stepchildren.
Yeah. Okay. I love that too. So again, I hear you saying that it's more, there's some growing pains in the beginning, but ultimately, if you can become a team and on the same page, it makes this process a whole lot easier, while also accepting the fact that it may not be, again, what you idealized as a first family when you are in the reality of having stepchildren and a blended family.
Yeah, it's like time. Like we always say, time, energy, money. Like those are the three things that you're always juggling in a step family.
Okay, I have another question, and this one actually is just exclusive to my True Fertility Tribe group. How do you go about bonding, or maybe what appears to be favoring, right, your biological child in front of your stepchild? Is that even something that you should concern yourself with? Are you interested in getting the answer to this question? Well, this is your personal invite to join our exclusive Facebook group to dive deeper into the world of fertility with bonus clips, behind-the-scenes content, and intimate discussions. Here you can connect with fellow tribe members, share your experiences, and contribute your insights to shape the future of the show. And it's easy to join. Just search True Fertility Tribe on Facebook, answer a few questions, and you're in. I also have the direct link in the show notes below. See you there. I think I have just one last question, and that is just how kind of when you do have your baby, our baby, how does that come into play with maintaining that homeostasis and that type of maybe routine and schedule in your home, if then you have these different schedules related to when your stepchildren visit, and how that might disrupt, I guess, the time or schedule that you have with your bio child? How do you mesh all of that?
This is a good question, because a lot of stepmoms stress out about this, and I used to as well. So take an example on a Wednesday night, and my older stepson has football and sometimes doesn't get home till like 8:30 or something. Always used to wake the baby up by opening the door, because our door's really creaky. So that used to trigger me, because I used to be like, I'm exhausted already. The baby's not slept all day properly, and now it's been woken up again. So yeah, you have to think about those things. And I think it's okay to be angry about that. And maybe what I just used to say is like, open the door really, really quietly. Make sure you feel quiet. Be quiet when you come in. And then you feel a bit like an evil stepmother, because you're asking everyone to be quiet when they come through the door. But at the end of the day, Charles needs his sleep as well. I shouldn't have to let Charles be woken up because everybody's being noisy coming through the door. So yeah, the schedule definitely goes out the window. And what we've noticed as well, because it's, my eldest stepson that's here the most, he's 15, he wants to stay up later. So sometimes we let Charles stay up later. It definitely, I think Charles probably goes to bed later. I think we're more lenient on Charles because his siblings are older and because they go to bed up later. So it's just, I do wonder what it would be like if it was just Charles. I wonder if we would be getting into bed at like 7:00 and then having our evenings. But where it's like we don't really have that anyway, it's not that pressure so much. So yeah, I definitely think that's, for me personally, our schedule is definitely a bit more easygoing and lax than potentially it would be if there were no stepchildren. And if I think back to the early days when he was a baby, it seems so long ago now, but I think we were much more strict in the first year, like with getting him to bed and the schedule. And I think probably the others fitted around him more in the first year, and then we've kind of let the schedule go a little bit more as he's got older. But I think he didn't sleep and he was difficult, and he slept in my bed for the first year, and my husband had to sleep in the spare room, and he like screamed all night, and he didn't want to sleep. And I think I got to a year and I was like, I can't do this anymore. He like has to go in his own bed now. So yeah, I think it depends on what type of baby you've got as well. Like you might have a baby that just like sleeps and doesn't wake up and is this chilled, easygoing baby. But if you have one that doesn't want to sleep and it wants to be up all night, it's going to change things for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. So lots of variation with that. And again, it sounds like if you want to be too rigid, you might just drive yourself crazy because
Yeah,
there's no
yeah.
way to kind of maintain that level of rigidity when you have so many different lives all around you and interests and age groups.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And I think that you're trying to sort of think back when like Charles was like on his milk and you're kind of giving it at like perfect times, etc. as well.
Mhm.
You just you sometimes have to just kind of go with the flow a little bit more and just accept the situation. Like, I think that's sometimes what that stepmom struggle with. And that's what's taken me a lot of work to get here as well, is like just accepting that I am part of a blended family, accepting that it isn't just me and Charles, and accepting that the other kids have just as much as a right to be here and to turn up and to have all their football, whatever, and pickups and drop offs and everything like that. Everybody is trying to just try and keep it as fair as possible. It's not going to be equal, but it can be as fair.
Yeah. I love that. Charlotte, was there anything else that you wanted to share with listeners today about this experience?
I don't think so. I think it's been really enjoyable just to talk about things. And I think a lot of things I've forgotten myself. If you're stepmom, then like have hope, because when I was in the midst of it, everything like just struggling and resentful and everything just felt all over the place. Like I never thought I'd be where I am now. And now I can hardly do things. Like I have to jog my memory for like when I was really, really struggling. So I think it's like just keep going and just keep trying to accept and trying to work through the feelings. And something that always helps me is like, what is the lesson that's coming up here? How can I grow from this? What action maybe do I need to put in place, or how can I change my mindset, etc. And that's how I approach, even now, if something happens, that's how I approach, and it helps me.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And I'm so happy that you've come to this space where you have really allowed yourself to give yourself that self-care. So, as far as I guess just a quick recap and summary of what I got from this interview today is that, again, we want to make sure that you advocate for any boundaries or in time that you may need if you're going through this process, and that it's okay, right? And to allow yourself to maybe block out some extra time if you're going through the IVF process, right?
Totally. It's the one time that you can be selfish. And that's
Mhm.
even the second time round, I was like, it's okay to be selfish. Is self-love as well sometimes, isn't it? Like, if you can't be selfish during IVF, when can you be? That's the time a woman should prioritize everything that she needs to, definitely.
That's exactly what I tell my clients as well. Be selfish. If
Yeah.
no other time, now.
Yeah.
Also, what I heard you say again, just recap, is just give yourself and your relationship that time to grow into the blended family that it can be. There's going to be some growing pains along the way,
Yeah.
but that's okay.
Yeah.
And to also just try to accept the reality of the situation, and that again, you are a blended family, and that comes with differences, and they're not necessarily bad differences, but just differences from a single family
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
yeah, first family. That's the term
Yeah.
we use, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I don't know where I read that, but yeah, first family. But I guess you can call anything you want to call. If you have
yeah.
step family, blended family, yeah. So
Well, it has been such a pleasure talking with you today, Charlotte. Thank you again for all of the work you do. And if listeners are interested in learning more about you or working with you, what is the best place for them to reach you?
yeah. So on Instagram and Facebook, I'm under the Stepmom Evolution, and my website is charlottegough.com, which is gough.com. So yeah, obviously here to chat anytime. And yeah, it's been so lovely. I love obviously talking about this being a stepmom, but I also love talking about infertility and IVF. I think the more we can just talk about it and normalize it, there's not that shame, and you just feel like you're not the odd one out, because you can feel that a lot of the time.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much. And thank you guys
Mm.
for listening. Thank you for allowing me to share these stories, information, and tips with you, or really just allowing me to connect with you on a subject that's so dear and important to your life. I really hope that somewhere out there I was able to reach one of you and to let you know that, again, you're not alone on this journey. Please make sure to subscribe to the podcast and do me a solid and share this with your friends or anyone that you think might benefit from hearing this. Also, I'd love it if you could leave a rating or review from wherever you're listening. If you have any questions or you want to share anything about what you heard today with us, please leave a comment on YouTube or Spotify. And for a deeper dive on today's episode, bonus content, and to connect with others in this space, I invite you to join True Fertility Tribe Facebook group. And last but not least, let's be friends on Instagram, where I post almost daily. You can find me at True Fertility. Wishing you all baby dust. Till next time. Bye.